On this day, in 1870, William Prendergast was up early. He'd slept soundly throughout the night and was quick to rise at 5:30 a.m, as he'd soon be receiving a visit from Dr. Carney before being joined by Fathers Connolly and Horan. Sitting calmly in his living quarters, he ate his regulation breakfast without complaint, and then mentally prepared for the momentous day before him, which would not last long. Shortly, his life would be terminated at the end of a hangman's rope within the confines of the Brisbane jail on Petrie Terrace. Nearly 3 months earlier, William had been incensed at his wife's insistence on consorting with another man. She'd assured her husband that she was no more than a friend to Patrick Hartnett, although William suspected otherwise. Late one night in early January, as Hartnett suspiciously approached Prendergast's family home down Brunswick Street, William slipped out of his house in silent pursuit. Grabbing a tomahawk he'd tripped over on his way down the side of the house, Prendergast caught up with his nemesis on the footpath in Temrookham Street, or current-day Heel Street, and immediately confronted Hartnett. When demands for Hartnett to declare his intentions went unanswered, punches were exchanged between the men before Prendergast withdrew the tomahawk he'd been concealing and slammed the weapon's blunt end into Hartnett's head. As his foe's lifeless body slumped to the ground, panic set in. Petrified the fistfight may have woken his wife, or a local might stumble across the scene at any moment, Prendergast decided he needed to act fast. Tying a coat around Hartnett's head and manhandling his limp frame over shoulder with quite the degree of difficulty given the prostrate man's size, Prendergast embarked on a bumbling mission towards the Brisbane River. Stumbling quite a distance down Brunswick Street, dodging fellow New Farm residents in the process, a final path was made along Dr. Roberts' fence and then through Robert Armour's paddock to the riverbank. Misjudging the terrain towards the water, Prendergast managed to pitch himself and the body down a steep embankment, and, upon both men coming to rest at the riverside, Hartnett's supposedly dead body began to moan. Hearing voices echoing across the river amidst Hartnett's moaning, Prendergast again panicked. Tomahawk in hand, he swung the weapon downwards in order to silence his victim, missing dismally as the implement's blade hit an obscured iron pipe on the riverbank and ricocheted off into the darkness. Taking up a rock that was close to hand, Prendergast took advantage of its destructive force instead, belting his victim on the head. Stripping Hartnett of his clothing, which was mostly thrown into the river, he utilised a rope appropriated from a nearby shed belonging to George Raff, as well as a piece of iron from behind it, and fashioned a makeshift anchor. Tying the rope around Hartnett's neck in a noose, Prendergast passed it under the left arm, secured another large rock beneath it to the left shoulder, continued down the right thigh, and then lashed the iron bar along the right side of his barely breathing victim. Finishing the job and hoping the body would sink, Prendergast shoved Hartnett's body over the bank down towards the water. However, little did he know that Hartnett would only fall a short way before landing exposed on a rock ledge, where his body was discovered early the next morning by 3 men rowing down the river. By this time, in the cold light of day, Hartnett had finally expired. Within days, William Prendergast, aka William Pender, was arrested for the murder of Pat Hartnett. Despite repeated questioning over the space of weeks, during which Prendergast's wife was also arrested on suspicion of collusion, William denied all knowledge of the crime, before finally coming forward and openly admitting his lone guilt via an incredibly detailed statement to prosecutors. During the trial, the jury were enticed by the defence to downgrade the charge of murder, which carried the death penalty, to manslaughter. However, the Attorney General protested, stating the defendant could either be found guilty or not guilty of murder, but manslaughter was well and truly off the table. Despite any attempt at defence on the grounds of self-defence or provocation, Prendergast's attempts to dispose of the body negated any defence to the contrary. As such, William Prendergast finally went to the gallows, penitent and without protest, plummeting through the trapdoor to eternity.